Welcome back. Welcome to TakeStock Live. Every Wednesday, 15 minutes after market close. We're well into the second season now, running every Wednesday into October. We'd like to thank CHF Capital Markets for providing this week's lineup. CHF Capital is a Toronto-based investor relations firm which has been a trusted partner for many public companies operating in mining, technology, healthcare, oil and gas, and special situations in Canada and worldwide. Its team consists of a diverse pool of talent that combines analytical and creative skills, making it a one-stop shop for all your communication needs in the public sector. Next week, we have Sterling Capital returning with two companies, Declar Resources, DKL, on the venture, and TraceSafe, TSF, on the CSE. So hope to see you back for that. We'd like to thank the TMX Group and TSX Venture Exchange, our event partner, for helping us keep the conversation between companies and investors going in these particularly unusual times. We would also like to thank our sponsors for the vital support provided by Fasken, MNP, Lead Jones Gable, Olympia Trust, and the CSE, who helped launch the forum back in 2014. We'd also like to thank our supporters for their help with this initiative. This includes Calgary Meg and CIM, Manitoba, Saskatchewan Prospectors and Developers, and many others, including Investmentpitch Media and the Newswire. Thank all of them for helping get the word out. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Mark Francis. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you, Raj, and welcome all of you, our attendees and guest presenters. Note our disclaimer, this presentation is for information only and is not a solicitation to buy or sell stock. Companies pay fees to present at TakeStock, and its principals, Raj Joshi and Mark Francis, may have equity investments in these companies we invite to present, may consult to the companies, and make no representation or investment or other recommendation in regards to these presenting or any other companies. You should do due diligence and seek professional investment advice. Some housekeeping matters for attendees. You will note a red Reconnect tab at the top of your screen. If you lose audio, just click it and you will be reconnected. Normally, we run about 45 minutes. The chat board may be utilized in this session, in particular for questions. If you do put one in, please be clear as to whom your question is being addressed. Today, we have two mining companies, and note the change in format with longer presentations, up to 15 minutes, and shorter Q&A. Please tell us what you think, including commenting in the chat board. Each company will have a presentation with their PowerPoint, and then I will lead the Q&A session. We do encourage you to do your due diligence, go to SEDAR and connect with companies directly in order to get detailed information. And contact details for the presenters can be found on our website, takestocklive.com. Today we have Timothy Frood, CEO of Sokoman Minerals, and Peter Cashin, CEO of Imperial Mining Group. So let's start with Timothy Froud, CEO of Sokoman Minerals, symbol SIC. Tim is a graduate of Memorial University of Newfoundland, has been active in the mineral exploration sector for over 30 years, working for, among others, Inco Limited, Altius Resources Corp, and Cornerstone Resources, and was directly responsible for the discovery of the Valentine Lake gold deposit in central Newfoundland. Tim, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mark and Raj. It's great to be here again, guys. Time flies. Wow, here we are in September, and guess what? It's drilling season, and we are drilling. Good to know. For those of us not familiar with Sokoman, this is a shortened presentation of our full corporate presentation that is available on our website, and I do encourage people that have questions beyond the scope of what I'm going to talk about today to certainly email us, call us, check out our website. Like I said, this is a shorter version, and there may be slides in here that people are expecting to see that I may not have time for in this time period. But anyway, here we go. For those of us not familiar with Sokoman, we're a Newfoundland-based venture exchange listed company advancing the 100% owned high-grade Moosehead gold property in north central Newfoundland, an area quickly becoming one of the most active exploration areas in Canada. We have two other earlier stage properties in the same district that we are looking for partners to move forward, but the topic today will be our flagship project, the Moosehead. Just a quick glance at our share structure as of July. Issued and outstanding, 123.2 million. Fully diluted, about 164 million. We have approximately $2.8 million in the bank, so we're well funded to do this current drill program. And our 52-week high-low is a low of 4, a high of 19. And currently, our largest shareholder is Mr. Eric Sprott, a name a lot of people may know in this gold business. Big structures, big gold. I've said this on many occasions that in order to funnel large amounts of gold-bearing fluids into a successful, and obviously profitable gold mine, you need a big structure. So, and clearly Newfoundland certainly fits the bill with a structure that can be traced, in fact, as far to the northeast as across the North Atlantic to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and even down into the eastern seaboard of the United States into the Carolinas, where at either end are multi-million-ounce gold deposits, Dalradian, for instance, in Northern Ireland, and down in the Hale mine with OceanaGold in the Carolinas. So, these belts have been proven to host multi-million-ounce gold deposits. However, for various reasons that I won't get into now, but they're valid. Newfoundland has never really benefited from, a robust gold exploration, I guess, history, exclusive of maybe the last couple of decades. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, and I think with the work that are being advanced by ourselves, Marathon to our southwest, Newfound Gold Corp, a newcomer, I think people will certainly understand and why, this area is certainly becoming one of Canada's hottest gold districts. The Moosehead sits approximately 130 kilometers northeast of the Valentine Lake gold deposit being advanced by Marathon Gold, and about 45 kilometers to the west of the newly, I guess, rediscovered Newfound Gold Corp property, the Queensway, where fabulous drill results, including 6 meters of 9 ounces, have been reported very recently, and no surprise as to why the funds have been flowing into this part of the world lately. Slide 4. We've completed almost 5 phases of drilling, for almost 28,000 meters and 123 holes. The Eastern Trend discovery, which we made in late 2018, has been defined over a strike length and still open of 500 meters. Down dip vertically, about 200 meters vertically, 250 meters down dip, and up to 10 meters thick. The structure, geology, and mineralization is comparable to the Fosterville district of Victoria, Australia, and you'll see in the coming slides why we feel that this is indeed the case. Some of our highlight holes include this picture you see there from hole 39, which is 5.1 meter intercept of 124 grams, and particular interest here, of course, is the occurrence of visible gold with antimony-bearing sulfides, which are quite common, a strong association actually in the Fosterville camp. Just looking down an overhead view, looking at our Leapfrog model, as we currently know, I guess the shear zones that host the mineralization seem to be part of a splay or a series of splays off of a main northwest trending, northeast east dipping series of thrust faults with gold mineralization developed along and in between several, and there could be more splays off of a main structure. We know this main structure trends, the entire length of the property and is related to the structure that hosts Valentine Lake to the north, to the southwest of us. As you can see here, the tight drilling certainly is defined in certain areas, what we call the Eastern Trend, sort of on the north, on the top part of the map here, and the western trend, the large greener areas to the south, and along strike, basically, very sparse drilling. And this thing is open in all directions, to the north, to the south, and down dip. Just a comparison, high-grade gold obviously is surprise any miner or any explorer looking for gold deposits in this business are looking for what you see here. Clearly, some very high-grade results from the Swan Zone at Kirkland Lake Gold in Australia. This mineralization occurs at a depth of about 1,200 meters down dip. And for comparison purposes, you see antimony-bearing sulfides with visible gold from our Moosehead project on the right-hand side. A very strong association. The big difference being, of course, that our mineralization lies very close to surface. In fact, hole 39 that you see here lies at a vertical depth of less than 200 meters. So that's very encouraging for us. As we know, we have a major structure that's very well mineralized, in the near-surface environment. And one of our goals for this coming season is to test this thing at least double the depth to at least the 400-meter level. What you see here is basically a piece of rock from one of the open pits that I visited at Fosterville a few years ago. It's actually laid right on top of a box of core from some of our Moosehead drilling. And as you can tell, the alteration, the host rock type, the style and type of quartz veining is very similar to Fosterville, and just gives us more reason to believe, of course, that the experts are also comparing favorably Central Newfoundland to the Fosterville camp. So this is all very exciting. So moving forward, as I mentioned at the outset, we've just started drilling. Phase 6 is our largest single, program to date. We envision 10,000 meters utilizing 2 rigs. We currently have rig 1 on site. It started last week, so we're underway. And it will focus on the eastern trend. As I mentioned, our goal is to basically double the depth of the mineralization. And of course, to extend the strike length in both to the north and to the south, where it remains open. Rig 2, which we expect to get on the property in the next couple of weeks. Rigs are very tight in this part of the world right now with so much going on. And it will focus on the western trend, mainly the depth extension, where we think actually the western and eastern trends could coalesce, actually become a single entity, which would be very good. A lot of good things can happen when multiple structures come together. As well, the Rig 2 will also test regional targets. And some of these regional targets are obviously ones that I mentioned earlier with our till sampling, where we've identified multiple sites with pristine gold grains that suggest very minimal travel, probably less than a couple of hundred meters. These targets exist anywhere from 400 to as far as a kilometer away from our current sort of drilled areas, and but more importantly, along the strike trend, projected strike trend of the main structure. We made a press release a few weeks ago on some boulders that we found about 400 meters to the south of the current limit of our drilling, which returned values up to 157 grams per ton, and very similar in character to the mineralization we've already identified. So we expect follow-up till sampling results. This has been an ongoing program, the prospecting and till sampling, and we expect follow-up results from the tills in early October. And we do anticipate drill testing several of these targets once we've refined them with the additional data. This will also be merged with our high-res mag survey we flew last winter. So these targets should be fairly tight and hopefully fairly lucrative for us. So as I mentioned, this is a shortened version of our full corporate presentation. It is available on our website, but we do encourage people to email us, call us. I will pick up the phone. I do put my name and number on press releases for a reason. I want people to call, and I do welcome calls. So without further ado, I'll pass it back to Raj or Mark and expect any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. And now we'll have Peter Cashin. Peter obtained his Bachelor of Science in Geology from the University of New Brunswick in 1979 and a Master of Science degree in Mineral Exploration from McGill University in 1985. Prior to founding Imperial Mining Group, he was the CEO of Peak Mining Corporation, and prior to that, CEO of Quest Rare Minerals, where he and his team won Quebec Prospector of the Year Award in 2010. Peter, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks, Raj. Thanks for having me on board. This is a non-geology talk. There is a little bit of geology in it. I am a geologist by training. It's an opportunity for me to run through a presentation that I'll be giving to the European Rare Earth Conference coming up at the beginning of October. So my disclaimer, of course. What I'm going to run through is who we are. Although we have gold and base metal projects, I'd like to familiarize the audience with the scandium market and what scandium is applied for. We'll look at some of the sources. We'll have a good look at the Strange Lake or Crater Lake scandium rare earth project. And then I think the objective of my presentation is really how are we going to create as a company a North American scandium supply and what the anticipated outcomes would be. So we're Quebec based. We have properties all in Quebec in the Abitibi for gold and base metals, and our scandium project up in Crater Lake, which is in northeastern Quebec, is our flagship. I built the company around an experienced team of mining experts that have built mines, found mines, sold mines, and have a particular strength in the area of critical metals. So our business strategy is we're developing the high quality Crater Lake scandium rare earth property in northeastern Quebec. We view it as a pathway to near-term sustainable cash flow. We have done preliminary cost estimates and show it to be low on the CapEx, OpEx, and we're able to apply a simple recovery method for the scandium. This is a rare earth. Rare earths have a history of being difficult for recovery, but fortunately, scandium, although considered a rare earth, is quite unique. Our intention is to deliver high margin master alloys, which is 2% scandium and 98% aluminum. That's used as a base product for all the different specifications of high strength, light alloys used in the automotive, aerospace, and defense sectors. And then ultimately, we have the good fortune of being located in Quebec, which is Canada's center for green aluminum. So intention is to deliver next generation lightweight alloys to reduce the carbon footprint, improve fuel efficiency, and extend the EV range. So I'm going to talk to that in my presentation. So the issue with scandium has always been is the price has been unsustainable due to the fact that most of the supply comes from unreliable providers, namely Russia and China, and really that the lack of a sustained supply is what's crimped the growth of the market. So right now, the current annual production is less than 35 tons of scandium oxide per year. That's all that the producers are able to return. And obviously demand is slated to grow with a sustainable source as high as 1,800 tons by 2023, according to 2035, according to Bloomberg. So what does scandium do when you add it to aluminum in small quantities, 0.4% or less? It significantly improves the strength of the alloy. It makes it more weldable, which is an issue with aluminum alloys. It makes it corrosion resistant. So it really has application, particularly in the 2 Series 5000, 6000, in the automotive, aerospace, and defense sectors. Where is it being used? So one of the innovation drivers is to reduce the emissions in automobiles. So scandium is a lightweighting product. So high strength can be used as welding material in chassis, EV motor housings, crash structures, and the rest. So the idea being, of course, is if you reduce the weight of an EV, it would be a cost-effective means by which to extend battery range. So one of the comments is interesting that Paul Rawlinson by Lucid Automobile, which is building quite a beautiful EV, is that EV designers should focus on things like aerodynamic drag and weight savings to avoid the need for big, expensive batteries. And I think that's a fairly prescient statement. It's also enlightening the combustion engines. You can improve the fuel efficiency and lower the greenhouse gases. So we know that massive investments are occurring right now on the EV space, particularly in Europe. Interestingly enough, though, is that by introducing as many as 43 million new EVs by 2030, it has the effect of lowering the carbon footprint by as much as 220 million tons per year by 2030. So it's also applicable in the aerospace industry. Scandium aluminum used in aircraft manufacturing lightens the airframe by as much as 20% and reduces the fuel consumption and therefore the carbon footprint. Airbus is actively involved in the scandium aluminum space with patented material they call Scalmalloy, both as welding material to replace rivets on the assembly of the plane, as well as and powder form and used in laser 3D printing for complex parts. Boeing has also done estimates on AM in aircraft manufacturing and will have the physical effect of reducing manufacturing costs. So it has a very important application in aerospace. And then finally, an important potential market is offshore power, wind generation. We know that 80% of the US population lives in near coastal areas. But the current technology for windmills, as you can see off to the left-hand side, is that they're tethered to a maximum water column of about 300 meters. And we know that power efficiency for wind turbines, offshore wind turbines, is much greater further out to sea. So now there's a new invention. The platforms, as opposed to being tethered, are now floating, and they're GPS located. So what you need in those platforms, given that some of these incoming wind turbines are 12 to 15 megawatts, are between 220 and 260 meters tall, you need a material that's corrosion resistant, strong, and lightweight. And then, of course, scandium aluminum will be able to provide you with that. So you can see that the significant increase in the amount of wind capacity by 2030, as much as a terawatt of new power generation by then, and it has a significant effect on the carbon offsets by wind generation versus conventional power. So where the sources, China, Russia are the big gorillas in the room. That's all they're able to produce. It's a byproduct of uranium process waste. It's also a byproduct of nickel, cobalt, laterite mining in the Philippines. Incoming sources, the Russians are looking at recovery of scandium in the red muds and bauxite operations. There's a lot of Australian projects. They're laterites, copper, nickel, or nickel cobalt laterites with a scandium teaser in there. And about 165 tons per year are slated as being produced. There's byproduct niobium mining and reprocessing of titanium waste. Rio Tinto just recently announced that they are able to recover scandium out of their titanium waste streams in their operation in Quebec. But the impediment has to be, you have to be price competitive, and the tipping point of broader consumption use has to be at $12.50 a kilogram or less. Whereas right now, our peers are using anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000 a kilogram US. The issue is that, I mean, there's a number of potential industries that would benefit from scandium aluminum alloys, but from our perspective, in early adopters are more likely to be the defense, aerospace, and space contractors, where they're far less price sensitive for material inputs for lightweighting. To put it into context, it costs a satellite company about $54,000 per kilogram, which is the payload cost. So just lightening as much as 20 kilograms is $1 million savings of putting your satellite into space. And then, of course, automotive manufacturers, which are much more price sensitive, would be, the large volume adopters of scandium aluminum once the market gets stabilized with more production. So there's our project. We're up in northeastern Quebec, about 95 kilometers off the end of the Trans-Labrador Highway. We have lots of optionality. There's lots of aluminum capacity in the North Shore of St. Lawrence. We have the option of delivering scandium aluminum to those centers. So it's the infrastructure is quite good: rail, hydroelectric, and road. And interestingly enough, there's a huge aluminum industry that's very beneficial to the provincial economy. And the government provides very attractive fiscal incentives for transformation of metal products into third and fourth order, particularly north of the 49th parallel. So that's what it looks like. It's a large magnetic ring structure. You can see that's about 6 kilometers in diameter off to the left-hand side. Once you model it in 3D, it's in actual fact, it's what they call a ring dike complex. It's a magnetic dike material that's come up along a crater collapse structure. We've now chased the structure around for about 14 kilometers. We've drill defined 2 zones, namely the Boulder Lake and the TGZ, with some diamond drilling. And we did some test drilling on a new target SDG, and we're awaiting results from the lab upcoming fairly soon. That's what it looks like. You can see that the purple rock is the host, and you can see that the dike feature is quite wide. We have intersection lengths in the order of 75 to 115 meters. And you can see that if you convert these scandium grades, 200 ppm, just added for reference, is scandium oxide is considered to be economic threshold. You can see if you convert the value at a $1,250 a kilogram price, those kinds of intersections are equivalent to 10 to 16 grams per ton gold equivalent. Believe me, we wouldn't be a 9-10 cent stock if we had 115 meters of 16 grams per ton gold. So really, we're working on developing a circular economy. How do you develop a supply chain? Well, obviously, our role here is to advance the project development. Our intention is now that we have our targets laid out. The intention is this winter undertaking a diamond drill program to be able to develop and deliver a 43-101 resource estimate. We're doing metallurgy on the mineralization right now as you speak in Germany. We've done all of our strategic marketing as was evidenced in some of the slides about market potential. And the intention there is we have all the necessary pieces to build a PEA, which we would like to deliver by mid-year next year. We're doing, we struck strategic alliances for material and platform R&D. That's really creating interest in the material, showing the benefits of different specifications of scandium aluminum alloy, and then developing market pull. So the Rio announcement was also very helpful that a major is getting into the scandium space. We want to be the price leader. I said what the tipping point is. We could economically, from our preliminary modeling, return scandium at a price point that's at or below the tipping point of the market. We want to be able to provide a reliable logistical supply infrastructure. I think supply chain and stability is very important for consumers, particularly the automotive and the aerospace industry and the defense sector. And then obviously as the material hits the market, there's, because aluminum is infinitely recyclable, is to develop a recycling plan in order to prevent bled aluminum making back into the market. We'd obviously incorporate things like blockchain and digital tacking of the project. So I think that's kind of like the way we view that we could create this market. And I think more importantly is that just to have a reliable source of the product will stimulate growth in the market. So what are the anticipated outcomes? Obviously, R&D will lead to financial and technical market capacity to develop the scandium aluminum alloy product in Canada. The supply chain would be underpinned by our project, a long-term scandium supply, Crater Lake. We'd elevate Quebec's aluminum industry, which is fairly high profile already in Canada, to a leadership role in the production of new next-generation specialty aluminum scandium product lines. In doing so, we would strengthen the technical capacity and provide a critical training and development incubator for future technologists in this new industry. We'd be able to portray a secure supply chain for commercial opportunities, strengthen the competitiveness and the environmental sustainability of the participating industries, and likely we would naturally lend ourselves to developing a recycling market for our scandium aluminum product. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Peter. And let's bring Timothy back on.
Hello again, Mark.
Indeed. And so you're
Well
stuck
done,
with
Peter.
me. Yeah, you did well. You're both stuck with me as your question moderator. I'm a non-geologist, so bear with me. So a question for both of you, and perhaps let's start with you, Tim. Neither of you, for different reasons, appear to have calculated a resource. Can you please talk about the steps you plan either to do this or what drilling you intend to allow for the calculation of one in the future?
Excellent question, Mark. We get this one a lot. Clearly, after drilling almost 30,000 meters of core in the past 2 years, gold deposits, by their very nature, are notoriously difficult to get an accurate grade, unless, of course, you drill them almost on a meter scale, if you will, in terms of especially high.
Oops.
Our goal is to get to, sorry?
You faded out. Could you just rewind a couple of sentences, please?
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Well, I mean, clearly, the next step for us is getting a maiden resource at Moosehead. We don't think we're there yet. Gold deposits, by their very nature, are nuggety and requires locally some quite intensive drilling, especially in higher grade areas. Where in a very small volume of rock you can have a lot of gold. That's very important. It's very important at Fosterville, at the Swan Zone, for instance, where less than 1 million tons can give you almost 3 million ounces of gold. We see potential for that at Moosehead. I mean, the grades are there, and we certainly have the structure to support that. But right now, we just don't have enough don't have enough drill holes. We could be getting close to something like that at the end of this phase. But certainly, we are looking forward to doing it. We hope, clearly this project has the legs to get to that stage and a PEA following that. But like I said, for now, we're focused on just making the thing bigger, as big as we can, as quickly as we can. And that process has started as of last week.
You're looking for me?
Yes, Peter.
Okay. Well, unlike Tim's opportunity, we're dealing with magmatic systems, which tend to be a lot more homogeneous. That 3D model that I represented was really showed the complex itself down to about 1 kilometer vertical. So any of the drilling that we've done, which is in the order of anywhere between 50 and 200 meters, show fairly uniform grades across the entire drill string. So it has very, very large potential, but because it's a new commodity, I think our focus is on trying to define the highest grade resource along that entire structure. We've done that this summer. We completed all of the surface work. We did some test diamond drilling for different targets outside of the known TGZ and Boulder Lake zones. And now we're ready to do some drill planning, which we intend to do this coming winter, and then get that into a resource estimate by the first quarter of 2021.
Good. So to follow up on that, then, Peter, how many drill holes do you have to date? And also, is there mineralization outside of the zones in a halo, or is it pretty defined by the structures?
Just all told, there's been about 42 holes that have been drilled on the property, 32 of which I discovered this property when I was with Quest in 2007. We moved it along because it was competing for capital with the Strange Lake development at the time. So we tried to move it along. 7 holes were drilled on the Boulder Lake. And we made that discovery in 2014. That was the last phase of exploration that had been undertaken on the property at that point in time. When I left Quest in 2015, I brought the property with me. I was looking for a home for it. So I found Imperial. I found Imperial, put it in there. We restarted exploration again in 2018 on the property. So there's about a 4-year gap there where there was no activity. Now since we've started exploring, we've got an additional 10 holes ourselves under Imperial, of which most were on the TGZ zone, and we've done a couple of test drill holes that we're waiting assays on the STG. So altogether 42, maybe 8,700 meters. Those 30 holes outside of resource drilling were just it's such a large complex. It's 6 kilometers in diameter. We wanted to make sure that we tested all the various target opportunities that were on it. And in terms of mineralization, it's actually restricted. That very, very high mag lineament that you see is really where the focus of the higher grade and more continuous mineralization. But because you're in a kind of like a fault, a caldera collapse or fault environment, you have a lot of smatterings, a little parallel features of the same rock type, but they're wispy and they're skinny. Where we are is the most continuous part of the system. Mark, your speaker's off.
Sorry about that. You'd think I don't do this very often. So let's run with you a little longer then, Peter. Why did these fluids have scandium in them, and is there any link to the 1.4 billion year age?
Well, it's not so much fluid, Mark, as it is the constitution of the magma. We've done a lot of geological studies, particularly at McGill University. We know that 100% of the scandium is related to iron silicates, rock building minerals, so pyroxene and amphibole. By way of that caldera collapse, the central portion that you see of the caldera would have moved down at the time and caused it acted as a plunger to bring up very, very deep magma from the lower part of the magma chamber that normally wouldn't be exposed at the surface, and moved it up along those structures like the oozing of toothpaste along the structure itself. So it has a lot to do with the nature of the original rock type, original magma. It's an alkaline intrusion. It tends to be quite enriched in things like rare earths and uranium and thorium. Fortunately, in the instance of Crater Lake, there's very, very low constitution or content of uranium and thorium, which is a saving grace because that tends to be an environmental liability in most of the rare earth projects you hear about today.
Indeed. So let's switch back to Tim. Tim, what is the dip of the mineralization, and how much overburden is there?
There is overburden. Clearly, it was actually probably an issue with some of the earlier exploration efforts at Moosehead in trying to define, the source of multiple high-grade boulders. It averages anywhere from, it ranges anywhere from 4 to about 20 meters. I'd say the average would be about 6 to maybe 8 or 9 meters, which is not really that deep, but just deep enough that it prevents you from seeing any surface mineralization. Initially, we were under the impression that the known mineralization at the time when we first acquired the property, the eastern trend, was not known. That was a discovery we made with our first hole, and that's a separate story. Initially, the concept was that the mineralization at Moosehead was sitting in a series of en echelon or layered, gently dipping, almost not quite flat lying, but gently dipping to the north quartz veins that trended basically east-west. Through our subsequent drilling and modeling, we've now come to realize that both the west trend, as that old mineralization is now known, we've renamed it, and our new discovery, 2-year discovery at the eastern trend, lie in subparallel, moderate dipping, easterly dipping shear zones that as I mentioned briefly in my presentation, that may actually coalesce or come together at depth, which would be a great thing to have 2 gold zones coming together. A lot of good things can happen when situations like that happen. So it's largely generally a north trending series of fault splays that dip anywhere from 50 to 60 degrees to the east, and again, open to the north, open to the south, and open down dip.
So we're looking at an underground mining situation here, not an open pit.
Well, I think you could see both. Some of the highest grades that we've achieved through our 4 or 5 phases of drilling to date are actually less than 60 meters below surface. And some of these are quite impressive intersections of, 12 meters of 45 grams. So, you dilute that down clearly with an open pit situation. But, clearly, I think both scenarios, first, clearly the open pit, and then chasing, hopefully, if we can do our job and be rewarded for it, chasing the thing down, hopefully, for a long ways. But yeah, so mineralization does come to surface because we have it in boulders. So clearly, an open pit has to be an option that's on the table at the outset.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit to your new targets, which you have indicated are within a kilometer approximately, some closer. Is there anything else additional about them that's unique? I guess you can't see any outcrop. It's subcrops, but underneath, too much till to really do any trenching. So you're just going to have to drill it. You hope to drill all of these targets, or what is your objective here?
Well, as I mentioned in the presentation, Mark, we have received phase 1 results from the till sampling, which was basically property-wide. We basically took samples at 250 meter spacings on lines 500 meters apart, from north to south, east to west. Basically, the whole property was covered. So we have all those results back, and we reported as earlier in the summer, results from that, which identified several very exciting targets that included some samples with dozens of grains of very pristine gold, which suggests a transport distance that's very limited, because gold is very malleable. It doesn't crumble. It doesn't sort of powder. Gold instead will round shape like nuggets in a stream, sort of thing. So when you get pristine or angular gold grains, that suggests that the transport has been very minimal, which is good news, because it means it's most likely a source from our property. So we followed those tills up, and we should get results. I've been speaking to the lab, and we should get those results back within a couple of weeks, certainly in time to merge it with, now this is also part of your question as well, like what else are we doing to sharpen these targets. The mag was a wonderful survey, and it certainly clarified why we're seeing the west trend where we see the west trend, why we see the east trend where we see the east trend. So we're going to merge the till data with the magnetics to look for features, we call them breaks or faults, that will be easily identified in the magnetics. And if we've got a till anomaly that's either just down ice from those breaks, or maybe even just a bit further, a long trend from where we know the faults to be that are mineralized, those are priority targets, and we'll have several of those, and we will address those in this coming program. We don't know how many holes we'll drill yet, because, like I said, the follow-up tills will basically dictate how many priority 1 targets there will be versus priority 2. And of course, we can't forget about the east trend either. If we hit there with some meaningful or more meaningful success, as we have in the past, we have to be mindful of making that zone as big as we possibly can as well. So, it's nice to have so much going on. It's going to be an exciting fall for us.
Very good, Tim. So, Peter, let's go back to you and learn a little more about a couple of things. The metallurgy, what is the process for recovering the scandium? And you indicate rare earth elements. What kind of associated grades do you have of rare earth elements, and how will that complicate the metallurgy?
We've done a lot of work metallurgy, and I'll speak to that. In terms of the kinds of, can you restate that again, Mark? Sorry about that.
What is the metallurgical
Oh, the
process
metallurgy, okay.
for recovering of the
Yeah.
scandium, and how much do you have in the way of rare earth elements, and how does that complicate your metallurgy?
Well, the as I outlined earlier, the minerals that contain the scandium are magnetic. Obviously, that's what brought the feature out on the regional mag map, and then subsequent our mag work. So we've already gone through two phases of metallurgy. We're using magnetic separation quite effectively to be able to concentrate those scandium-bearing minerals. We're able to reject as much as 60% of the rock, the non-ore-bearing rock mass, and be able to retain about a 92% recovery on the scandium. Subsequent steps, and that's what we announced earlier in the fall or in the spring. We're doing the next phases, which is the hydrometallurgy, which now we're going to take those iron silicate minerals that contain the scandium, put them in acid digestion, run them through a kiln, convert these silicates into sulfates, and then bring that ultimately into a recovery process. And it could be the conventional wisdom on that is solvent extraction, where you're using all sorts of organics to recover your metals of interest, which would be scandium. There are other methods. You can use ion exchange. You can use carbon activated carbon column recovery of scandium as well. Those are all going to form part of what we're looking at. And in terms of the rare earths, it's actually a separate mineral suite. The scandium reports to the magnetic aliquot, and in actual fact, the rare earths report to the non-magnetic portion of our separations phase. So we're effectively being able to separate the two. Now, in terms of the grades, like I said earlier, we're looking at anywhere up to 1.4%, 77 meters of 1.4% total rare earths. We have 200 meters of a little over 1% of rare earths. We have 167 meters of 1.18% total rare earths. They tend to be, those rare earths are mostly lights, but of the total percentage, about 25% of the total rare earth mass is all the interesting battery rare earths, which is neodymium, praseodymium, and dysprosium. So, but from my experience at Quest, the level of technology risk of separating and recovering and refining rare earths is very high. As a matter of fact, the Chinese right now are the only ones that do it. And it's a very, very costly venture. As an example, we invested as much as $10 million into metallurgy to try to recover and separate the rare earths at Strange Lake. Because scandium is a standalone, and the preliminary financials on the project are looking pretty robust just for the scandium alone, we would look at recovery of rare earths. We also have zirconium product that we're able to sell out. We have titanium that comes out in the magnetic separation. So if there's a means by which that I can sell those products as raw concentrates and allow a downstream processor to overcome the technical risk of those separation, I'd look at that as an opportunity for operating cost recovery. So just get money back from those products that normally we throw it into the tailings, and let somebody worry about gaining revenues from them.
Very good, and quite helpful that the REEs separate themselves so nicely from your scandium.
Mother Nature was a good gal. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. She's usually not that kind or benign.
No, very true.
Yes. So we've come to the end of our session. Timothy, come on back on. And just want to say thank you to both of you as our presenters. May you have success in the remainder of the summer exploration season, or early autumn, and winter be kind to you as well. Timothy Froud, CEO of Sokoman Minerals, SIC, and Peter Cashin, CEO of Imperial Mining Group. Forgive me, Peter, I've forgotten your symbol. Remind me again.
IPG.
It is IPG. Thank you very much. And to you, our attendees, thank you for your time today. do go to today's company's websites, learn more about them, and check in at TakeStockLive.com. Be determined in your due diligence and ask tough questions. We'll be back September 30th, and we look forward to having you then. This is Mark and Raj signing out from TakeStockLive.com.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All the
Thanks
best.
very much.
Well done,
Cheers.
Peter.
Yeah, likewise, Tim. Good luck with your project.